All right, hello and welcome to this training. As you can see from the title, what we're going to be covering today is how to hyper-focus and actually get things done. And as you can see from the overview, what we're going to be talking about more specifically is first the overview itself, the foundations of hyper-focus, clarity targeting, environment lockdown, time boxing and Ultradian cycles, execution rhythms, and the perfect week, and then the review and your action items for the day or the next few days. So without further ado, let's get started and talk about the foundations of hyperfocus. So in classical physics, the principle of energy conservation defines the entire logic of motion. Energy never appears out of nowhere, it simply transforms. Potential becomes kinetic, motion becomes heat, heat becomes radiation, and on it goes. Each step feeds the next. And so the total system energy remains unchanged even as it shifts between forms. And that same law quietly governs how your mind works as well. It may sound abstract at first, yet it captures something fundamental about attention itself. Like energy, focus doesn't disappear. It changes states. It can convert from curiosity into analysis, from analysis into fatigue, from fatigue into distraction, and then back again into alertness. The total amount stays the same, though its usefulness really depends on where you direct it. And so imagine a closed system where energy moves but doesn't vanish. The mind operates within that same boundary. Each change of task or glance at a new stimulus transfers mental energy from one process to another, leaking a little during every handoff, just as heat leaks away in a mechanical engine. And those small losses may seem harmless, but stacked together, they drain your capacity to think deeply. For example, in thermodynamics, every conversion between energy forms increases entropy, disorder that basically limits what's left for meaningful work. So cognitive effort behaves the same way. The more context you jump between, the more mental entropy builds, leaving less clean energy for actual focus. Once you notice this, it becomes obvious how your mental state mirrors a physical system. Now, extending the metaphor further, imagine your brain as a power plant that basically generates a steady current. If that current splits across too many lines, the voltage drops everywhere. One solid circuit delivers strength, while 10 broken ones flicker weakly. The math stays simple. Spread energy thin, and everything will dim. So neuroscience reinforces this idea. Each switch of attention burns glucose and oxygen. Each refocus consumes chemical fuel. Just like physical labor, mental work depletes limited reserves. Efficiency depends on sustained continuity rather than just speed, and every interruption wastes part of your finite charge. Seen this way, attention becomes resource management, really. Each moment turns into a decision about where to send limited energy, and mastery of focus becomes the mastery of flow, deciding which systems stay active and which must go dark so that the rest can actually run strong. From here, the idea becomes more tangible. Focus shapes your whole life's architecture. It determines whether your energy builds structure or burns away through noise. And every goal, every small evolution in skill or mindset rests on how cleanly you can direct that energy. Hyperfocus, then, isn't really talent, but rather trained control. It's the point where distraction stops stealing motion and momentum finally compounds. Building from that, you need to start treating attention as a scarce currency. Each morning brings a limited reserve of mental fuel, and every choice spends some of it. So most people feel drained not because they actually work hard, but because they work in a scattered way. The brain's craving for novelty will tempt you towards shallow stimulation, and every surrender will cost you focus and depth of thinking. Once you begin guarding your attention like your savings, the hours start feeling deliberate again. And so you'll notice how every feeling in your day actually traces back to your attention's direction. Scattered focus leads to restlessness. Steady focus calms the body. And so when concentration holds firm, time expands, thought sequences align, and actions follow smoothly. The pattern becomes predictable. Attention shapes your day, and the day shapes your results. Following that, remember that focus strengthens through repetition. Each time you actually hold your attention steady, you reinforce the neural circuits that make it easier next time. Each time you redirect yourself from distraction, you teach the brain endurance. If you keep at it, stillness stops being effort, it becomes instinct, and the system stabilizes through practice. Once that groundwork feels steady, the next question naturally arises. What exactly deserves that level of attention, and how do you maintain it once you've chosen it? Clarity becomes the bridge. The mind cannot deliver full intensity towards a vague target. Choose a single concrete outcome and then commit to it fully. Every act of choosing reduces mental noise and creates a direct path forward. To do this, you need to trim your priorities down to one. Long lists fragment your energy long before you even begin. Focusing on one mission per work block removes friction and gives you a goal you can actually finish cleanly, and starts linking momentum from one task to the next. Now, before starting, write your chosen task in plain words. That small act by itself anchors it in memory and creates a visible cue. Each glance back at the note will actually renew your focus and will keep drift from stealing your progress. Then tie meaning to it. When purpose fuels the action, focus feels lighter and lasts longer. So the reason energizes the repetition, giving weight to every minute you actually stay locked in. Next, you need to start sharpening the boundary. Attention strengthens through removal, and deliberate subtraction protects depth. So choose what stays out of reach and enforce those limits with the same discipline as deadlines. When distraction shows up, recognize it and gently bring attention back. That simple move, if you repeat it, builds the control loop. The more you return, the shorter the gap between wandering and presence becomes. And after each cycle, try to finish clean. Step away, breathe, and acknowledge the focus that you held. That brief recognition will actually wire the satisfaction to concentration, turning effort into a reward instead of fatigue. And now, with that clarity set, you'll see the next challenge actually forming: the external world itself. So the rooms, screens, and the tools that are surrounding you must now support what the mind is learning to protect. So environment then becomes the stage where your focus either thrives or fails. Every object, sound, or an alert competes for your limited bandwidth, and you can't expect precision in chaos. So design your surroundings so that everything you see and hear reminds you of what you came to do. Now, first, you need to begin by removing what doesn't serve execution. An uncluttered workspace lowers your friction and signals clarity. And each cleared surface quiets part of the brain, making entry into flow feel easier and faster. So keep your setup predictable. Same chair, same light, same background sound. The repetition itself will cue your nervous system automatically and will teach your body when to enter deep work mode without thought. And then guard that zone. Silence devices, close doors, communicate your hours. Once others see your clear lines, interruptions will fade naturally. And finally, treat technology as an environment of its own. It amplifies discipline or distraction depending on how you actually configure it. So remove or hide digital clutter and applications that are designed for quick rewards. Every reduction preserves more mental bandwidth for creation. And then let systems take over in your weaker moments. Focus modes, blockers, and automation, all of them carry discipline forward when your willpower slips, and make sure that attention stays where you intended it to stay. So with the foundation set, the natural progression leads us to having clarity around what to use that energy for. So let's talk about clarity targeting. Now, focus doesn't last if you don't know what you're working towards, and that's something most people forget. The brain is built to chase clear goals. It wants direction before it can actually give you full effort. So when your goals are vague, your energy spreads out like light through fog, and you end up feeling tired without much progress to actually show for it. But once you define a target, everything in your body and mind begins to organize around it, and thoughts start to line up. Attention sharpens and your actions follow a straight line instead of zigzagging in every direction. So this section will show you how to pick a goal that's concrete, realistic, and motivating enough to actually keep your attention steady. So building on that idea, strong focus starts when you know exactly what you're trying to finish. Clarity gives purpose to motion. Many people stay busy without ever feeling productive because they never define what done actually means, which leaves them stuck in constant motion without any momentum. And you'll notice a real difference when you can picture completion clearly. Work feels lighter when it has an end point. And it's not about working endlessly, it's more so about working with a finish line in sight. And once you define your goal in simple, measurable words, your mind will begin to find paths towards it naturally. So the more specific you get, the more your habits and motivation will start supporting you automatically. So clear goals actually train your mind to aim rather than to wander. And so now, how you make that practical is by shrinking large or overwhelming tasks into small steps that you can actually finish. When you write one simple sentence that basically defines what finishing means, you're giving your brain direction it can follow without hesitation. Big, unclear goals actually cause hesitation and overthinking, while smaller, precise ones let you move forward with ease because your effort has a clear direction. And when your goal feels concrete, your brain will automatically commit more energy because it can imagine success clearly. For instance, don't just say work on an essay, since that leaves you pretty much guessing where to start. Instead, make it more clear and say something like write 2 body paragraphs and review the thesis statement, which makes the task smaller, it makes it clearer, and it makes it easier to begin. Once you start, your brain releases chemicals like dopamine that make continuing feel way more satisfying, linking action to reward and strengthening the habit loop. Then, after defining your goal, plan exactly where and when you'll do it so your brain can actually build a routine around that context. So choose a place that feels right for focused work, and then decide how long you'll stay there before taking a break. This structure will actually tell your body it's time to shift gears, and when your brain knows what's coming, it will stop worrying and start performing naturally. And this method works so well because structure gives your mind a sense of safety. When everything is planned, you no longer waste energy making small decisions, and the energy you save can now go straight into doing the work itself. Now, once you've written the goal and prepared the plan, take a few quiet moments to imagine the end result. Picture yourself actually finishing. Feel the relief, the pride, and the satisfaction of actually completing it. It's a way to train your brain to expect success. When you visualize the finish, your brain rehearses that same neural pattern needed for real action. And that's why athletes, musicians, and top students use this technique. It helps bridge the gap between thinking and doing and makes the goal actually feel achievable before you even start. So with your goal now clearly defined and visualized, the next step is to make starting smooth, because clarity only matters when you can act on it easily and consistently. So getting ready ahead of time connects intention to action. When your space, tools, and mindset are already prepared, focus will start feeling natural and easy to maintain. And you won't waste precious energy deciding what to do first, because everything you need is already waiting for you. Over time, this habit by itself becomes a small ritual that quietly signals to your brain that it's time to focus. And the less friction you have between decision and action, the faster you'll find your attention locking in and staying there. So create a small pre-focus ritual that you can repeat before every work session. It could be sitting in your favorite chair, taking a slow breath, or writing down the task you're about to start. These consistent cues will train your brain to associate those actions with focus, and after a while, the simple act of doing them will really automatically help you slip into deep concentration. Along with that, use a single visual cue to represent your start. It might be an open notebook, a timer, or a certain background sound that marks the beginning of focus time. As you repeat this, your brain will actually recognize that cue and settle faster each time, building a fast track into flow. Then, as you begin, allow your focus to warm up gradually. Just like warming up muscles before lifting weights, start light and give your mind a few minutes to actually find its rhythm. This kind of soft start helps your concentration last longer without actually burning out or mentally straining. And if your mind slips early on, don't worry, that's part of the process. Instead of getting frustrated, simply return to your starting ritual. Each time you do, you strengthen the habit and make it easier to recover attention the next time. Now, once you've started, the first 20 to 30 minutes are actually the most important. During this window, your brain shifts from surface level thinking to deeper focus. So treat this time like a sacred ground. Protect it from interruptions, multitasking, or noise. And if you can hold your focus steady through this stage, your concentration will naturally deepen and stabilize. So to help with that, use clear time blocks, 25, 30, or 45 minutes, or 90, and promise to yourself to just work only on one thing during that window. Now, timers help by removing the urge to constantly check the clock and keep your attention fixed where it belongs. And once the timer goes off, try to take a short break to reset your mind. Stand, stretch, move, or just grab some water. These short pauses will actually refresh your energy so that when you return, you can drop right back into focus while your brain is still in gear. And once starting feels automatic, the next step really becomes protecting that attention. Even perfect clarity won't really matter if your distractions keep breaking your flow. So the best focus happens inside clearly defined boundaries, since structure acts almost like a shield around your attention. So you can think of these boundaries as invisible walls that basically protect your time and mental space from interference. Don't rely only on willpower to resist distractions. Instead, make it impossible for them to even reach you. Turn off phone alerts, close unused tabs, and tidy your workspace before you even begin. Every small improvement makes your environment more supportive of focus. So begin with your physical environment and make it reflect your intention. Adjust your lighting, close your door, and play instrumental music that basically signals work mode. The brain responds strongly to sensory cues, and when your surroundings communicate focus, your mind will naturally align with them. So from there, let people around you know when you're working and when you'll be free again. Setting these expectations up front will actually reduce interruptions and removes the pressure to multitask. It also is clear communication, and clear communication lets you stay focused without guilt. To take it a step further, you can also add visual or auditory reminders that you're in work mode, like headphones or a do not disturb sign, or even putting your phone on do not disturb, or some kind of a focus playlist. These cues will actually reinforce your boundaries and help others recognize your commitment to staying focused. Now, just as your space needs to be clear, your mind needs to be uncluttered too. So before starting, jot down any random ideas or to-dos that might pop up later so your brain doesn't hold on to them. This mental offload will clear cognitive space and keep you light and present. And when distractions still appear, and they will, acknowledge them calmly and redirect your attention without any judgment. Each return to the task is actually a repetition that strengthens your mental focus, building a kind of internal endurance that grows over time. And as you know, and I have another video on my channel that basically talks about this specific concept of consistency, where consistency isn't necessarily defined as just doing the thing every day consistently, but rather being able to return to the thing. And that relates to returning to the task and how it strengthens your mental focus as well. Each time you actually do it, you'll become better at actually directing your attention and focusing on the right things. Now, after finishing your session, try to close it intentionally. Save your work, clean your area, and just take a moment to basically recognize what you've accomplished. Closure will actually tell your brain that focus time is complete, and it will leave you with satisfaction rather than a feeling of heavy exhaustion. Now, finally, try to end by reviewing what went well and what you could improve next time. Now, with your goals clear, your start smooth, and your focus protected, the next step will be nailing down your environment. So let's talk about environment lockdown. So the place where you work has a huge effect on how your brain actually performs, and understanding this connection will completely change how you approach focus. So every sound, color, smell, and light sends signals to your brain that shift how alert, calm, or restless you feel. And because of that, your surroundings can either help you sink deeper into work or quietly pull you away from it without you even noticing. In 1998, philosophers Andy Clark and David Chalmers introduced the idea of the extended mind. And they basically wrote a famous paper where they argued that tools, notes, computers, and even the physical space you work in all become parts of your thinking system once you use them to hold or process information. The boundary of the mind moves outward to include whatever helps it think better. And here's the simple version. When you write down a thought, your notebook becomes part of your memory system. In a way, when you rearrange an object on a desk to visualize an idea, the desk becomes part of your reasoning process. When you organize your workspace to reduce noise and distraction, you're literally reshaping how your brain operates inside that environment. When you write something down on a whiteboard, the whiteboard becomes an extension of your mind. So a cluttered environment forces your brain to basically do double duty. It has to both think about your task and constantly filter irrelevant signals such as colors, noises, and clutter. And that burns through working memory, the small, limited part of your mind that handles short-term problem solving. But a calm, ordered environment offloads that load, and it takes away unnecessary decisions, irrelevant inputs, and background noise. And that frees up mental bandwidth, which is why your thoughts will feel sharper in a tidy, intentional space. So try to actually notice how much your environment shapes your mind as you begin to work. A messy, noisy space will actually make your brain stay on edge, scanning for something new or worrying that it's missing something important, which drains the mental energy you could be spending on actual thinking and creation instead. Over time, when your surroundings stay cluttered, your brain picks up on the chaos even if you don't consciously notice it. And that's when you start to feel restless, anxious, or scattered for no clear reason. This happens because your mind is actually reacting to too much stimulation. It's trying to process every cue in the room at once. On the other hand, when your space feels calm and clean, your body relaxes automatically, almost like a reflex, and the brain stops scanning for problems and finally allows you to focus on one thing at a time. And you'll start to feel lighter, clearer, and far more motivated to actually get started when the world around you supports that mental state. So think of your workspace like a stage where your focus is the main actor. The lighting, the sound, and the background all matter. A chaotic stage basically distracts the audience, while a clean, well-lit one makes the actor shine. And the same thing happens in your head. Your environment can either make your focus stand out or drown it in noise. So picture yourself trying to write a test or finish a puzzle while someone keeps tapping on your shoulder, the radio is blaring, and the bright light is flickering in your eyes. That constant background chaos will make it almost impossible to really think clearly or stay steady. So a cluttered, noisy workspace has the same effect. It keeps your brain half distracted. But when you tidy your space, turn off the noise, and make things calm, it's like putting on noise-canceling headphones for your brain. Everything suddenly feels clear, direct, and under control. So once you realize that focus depends more on your environment than on pure willpower, everything starts to make sense. Instead of blaming yourself for being distracted, you'll begin fixing the space that causes it. That small shift by itself will make concentration feel far more natural. Now from here, start treating your workspace as part of your mental toolkit rather than just a place to sit. So think of it as one of the most important tools for your focus that you own. Begin by making sure everything actually has a purpose. Arrange your desk so that what you use most often is within reach, and remove items that only take up space. Each object should basically earn its place by helping you think, plan, or create. Now, once organized, take another look and ask yourself if you can simplify even more. A simpler space will keep your brain calm, and the less you have to manage visually, the faster you can actually concentrate on what matters. And then let your setup send a clear message. It's time to focus. The moment you sit down, the environment should remind your brain what to do. A clear surface, good lighting, and an uncluttered view will all reinforce that cue. And finally, use this space often and consistently. Each time you work in the same place, you actually train your brain to associate it with focus. I personally always just work in this room. I rarely even take my laptop out of here. So over time, just sitting down there in that space will basically flip your brain into deep work mode automatically. Now, after you've set this foundation, take a moment before you begin working to actually look around your space. Notice the details you normally ignore: the hum of electronics, the vibration of your phone, the clutter sitting in your line of sight, or the low background chatter. Each of those tiny things actually steals just a bit of attention, and together they basically add up. Now, the brain has evolved to react to every sound or movement as a potential threat or opportunity, and that's still true today. So when you realize how much of your attention your environment is constantly demanding, you'll see that real focus means actually reducing friction, not just pushing harder. So as you start, try to pay attention to how your environment changes your mood from moment to moment, and ask yourself if this space makes you feel calm or distracted, motivated or tired, productive or lazy, and try working in different spaces to actually feel the difference directly. You'll see how much easier it is to think when your desk is clean compared to when it's buried in random items. This is also why some people feel more motivated and more productive in a cafe, for example. Their own space is actually not conducive to productivity. And even something small like the smell of coffee or how bright the light is can actually shift your energy instantly. When everything feels clean and balanced, your mind will match that feeling. Now, before doing anything else, try to make a quick mental list of the things that constantly catch your eye or interrupt your flow. This list might include your phone, it could be cables, it could be a pile of books, or that noisy air vent in the corner. The goal is to see the distractions as specific, fixable details, not as some vague problems. And notice the physical sensations your environment actually creates: the temperature of the air, the brightness of the light, or the texture of the chair you're sitting on. These small cues actually all affect your energy level more than you might think, and adjusting them can make a big difference in how long you stay focused. It's almost like optimizing every little detail on a Formula One car for speed, basically, and for performance. The same goes for your workspace. So pay attention to how you move through your workspace. Do you fidget? Do you get up often? Or do you constantly shift around? All of these small behaviors are actually cues that something in your setup isn't right. So fixing the flow of your workspace often fixes the flow of your thoughts. So next, pretend that you're walking into your workspace for the first time and look at it like a visitor would. What catches your eye first? What feels unnecessary? Try to keep what supports your focus and then remove what doesn't. When your workspace actually looks intentional, your brain mirrors that order and starts working with the same clarity. Then you just test different setups to find your ideal environment. Face your chair toward a blank wall if you're easily distracted, or sit by a window if natural light helps you focus. I personally have a window right in front of me, and you can actually see it in the glare of my glasses. The reason for that is because I personally feel more productive when I'm close to daylight and close to natural light, because for me specifically, it makes me feel better, and by feeling better, I feel more productive and can actually focus better. So try adjusting your lighting, your background music, or even your chair height until it actually feels right. Your chair height actually can be a very big distraction. If your chair is too high or too low, it will cause you to sit in a different way on your desk, and that will by itself be a small annoyance that you might not even notice, and it might be stealing your focus. Just keep adjusting until the moment you sit down, your body already knows it's time to work. And then try working in different types of light throughout the day. For example, morning sunlight or indirect daylight, or some warm artificial light at night. And notice how each one of those actually changes your mood and alertness. This will help you find what type of lighting supports your best focus rhythm. Some people actually prefer working without any light. They prefer working at night and turning off their lights and basically working in dark. And there's nothing wrong in that. It just works for them. So if we're talking specifically about focus, there's nothing wrong in that. If we're talking specifically about productivity and output, there's nothing wrong in that. Now, I'm not saying it's probably the healthiest thing to work in a dark room. However, if we're talking specifically about output and you notice that your output increases in an environment like that, then you'll optimize for that. So all of this, just changing your lighting and testing different lights, will actually help you find what type of lighting supports your best focus and rhythm. And then try to experiment with different sound environments. So for example, some people work best in silence. I specifically work best in silence or with some kind of low volume jazz music or something like that, or piano. Others find steady background noise helpful. So it's either silence or some steady background noise. I've heard people being very productive listening to techno. So it really depends on the person, but you can try some soft music, ambient sounds, or even a playlist that's designed for focus, and see which one keeps you most comfortable and most consistent. And try to pay attention to your posture as well and your comfort levels. So adjust your chair height, desk level, and even your screen distance until your body actually feels relaxed but upright. And you might have not even noticed, but I actually just shifted the way I'm sitting as I'm recording this video, because I noticed that how I was sitting in the beginning is actually making me feel less focused on what I'm actually doing right now. So you'll find that when your body feels right, your brain can actually focus for longer without strain. And try to add small touches of nature, like a plant or natural wood texture. All of these details will just help reduce stress and make your space feel alive. And over time, you'll basically notice how these elements make focusing feel more natural and less forced. So once you've done that, awareness will start becoming a habit and your distractions will start to fade. And you're going to be ready to move from reacting to intentionally designing the kind of environment that works for you every time you enter it. So a great workspace doesn't just remove distractions, it pulls you into work basically naturally. So when you walk in, everything should feel like it's set up for success. You shouldn't have to really fight to focus, because the design itself makes concentration the easiest choice. And it's not about perfecting it, but more so about balancing it and aligning it with you. When your space mirrors your own goals and how your brain works and how you work, your brain will basically stop resisting and start cooperating. So keep your desk clear, simple, and intentional. And try to have only what you truly need: your laptop, your notebook, a pen, and maybe one thing that actually brings you some calm, like a small plant or a photo of a loved one. And the less visual clutter, the less mental noise. Over time, your brain will actually treat sitting at this desk as a trigger to focus, and you'll find yourself slipping into flow faster than ever. And as you set up your desk, try to pay attention to lighting. Natural daylight will actually wake up your body, and it will boost alertness by signaling that it's time to be active. And if you're working late, try to use soft, warm light that keeps your eyes relaxed but focused. Those harsh lights or screens against dark rooms, as I said earlier, will actually drain you quicker, depending on the type of person you are. For most people, working in dark will actually drain them quicker. Others find it calming and relaxing to work in the darkness. And there has been some research proving that working in dark actually increases creativity, and it might be linked to the fact that you feel less seen and so less criticized in a way from the world. Now, balanced lighting, on the other hand, can actually help you stay sharp and steady. So along with lighting, sound plays a huge role as well. Even quiet, unpredictable noises can actually distract your brain. So instead, try to use some consistent background sounds like rain or soft instrumental music or some ambient noise. A lot of people recommend using Brain FM. If you're using a Windows PC, a great app, if you don't want to go for Brain FM, a great app for Windows is called Ambi, and you can just download it from the Microsoft Store. But those basically are ambient noise generators in a way. And if you crave silence, invest in just noise canceling headphones, or you can even try to isolate your room. And the goal is just stability, a steady sound environment that lets your attention stay centered. Now, once you've done that, try to look at how your room actually feels. So for example, cooler air will keep your body awake and alert, sometimes too much, while warmer air will sometimes make you feel sleepy. So somewhere around 20 to 22 degrees Celsius tends to work best. Now, if you want this in Fahrenheit, please convert it. However, for me, I personally keep my room around 18 to 20 degrees. I've just noticed that I work best around that temperature. It's also great for sleep. 18 to 20 is kind of the great middle. Again, you should try to test it for yourself. This is just a recommendation, but anywhere between 18 and 22 degrees Celsius tends to work best for most people. And you'll feel your energy hold longer when your body actually feels comfortably cool. So finally, try to think about scent. I know a lot of people actually don't think about this, but subtle, consistent smells like citrus, peppermint, or eucalyptus can actually boost alertness without distracting you. And a repeating scent can even become a mental cue sometimes that basically tells your brain that focus time has begun, especially if you use that scent only when you actually get into a focus session. Now, once everything is in place, try to make cleaning and resetting part of your daily rhythm. Now, before you end your workday, just try to take 5 minutes to organize. Stack your papers, close your computer, clear your desk. I usually clean my desk also with a wipe. So this short ritual will also tell your brain that work is done, and the next time you return, you'll feel ready to start without any hesitation. So to keep this system working, dedicate one day each week to a deeper reset. For me, it's Sunday. Try to clean your keyboard, dust your shelves, sort your drawers, organize your cables, just clean your whole house if you have to. Consistency here builds trust in your environment, and that trust will fuel calm, steady focus. And just try to add a touch of personality, like a photo or some artwork or a small object that basically means something to you. Too much decoration can actually distract you, but 1 or 2 personal touches can make the space feel like your own. With your physical setup now tuned to your brain's needs, you need to understand and be able to manage your time. So let's talk about time boxing and Ultradian cycles. So time management isn't really about stuffing your schedule with more tasks. It's about using your natural energy wisely so that your work feels smoother instead of harder. And the human brain doesn't actually move in straight lines. It basically operates in repeating waves of energy and recovery and a constant rhythm between focus and rest. So these cycles actually control how alert you feel, how clearly you think, and how long you can actually sustain deep work before your fatigue starts setting in. So throughout the day, you'll hit natural highs where your brain feels switched on and your thoughts come easily. And these are basically your golden hours when learning, problem solving, and creative thinking flow naturally. If you align your toughest work with these moments, you'll basically notice that tasks that once felt draining suddenly become a bit more manageable. And you can look for subtle cues that signal you're in a peak, like your body will feel upright and alert, ideas will connect faster, distractions will kind of lose their pull, and these sensations will basically tell that your brain's chemistry is optimized for performance. Now, when you learn to spot these cues, you'll know exactly when to dive into your hardest work. And once you recognize a peak, you need to take advantage of it. So try to silence any notifications, block your interruptions, and just dedicate this window to your most demanding or creative tasks. Working in alignment with your biology will actually multiply your efficiency without any extra effort. So after each high, your energy will naturally drop. So focus will start to blur and your mind will start to wander. And simple tasks will start to take longer. So fighting this dip by pushing harder will actually only increase the stress and the burnout you feel. So instead, try to use these slower periods for recovery or light work, like emails, planning, reviewing your notes, or some kind of physical movement. So respecting your dips doesn't mean actually wasting time. It means letting your brain recharge so that your next focus cycle is just as strong. Even short breaks will actually reset your mental clarity and keep fatigue from building up. And you can think of these dips as an investment. Every short rest you actually take during the day will extend your total output across the week. And by protecting your recovery, you're actually really protecting your performance. Now, once you begin noticing these waves of focus and rest, you'll see that your best days aren't the ones where you work nonstop. They're the ones where your rhythm stays balanced. And when you plan your schedule around these natural cycles, your productivity will rise and your stress will start dropping. And you'll stop racing time and start using time deliberately. Over time, you'll notice that time itself starts to begin feeling slower, fuller, and more controllable. And you'll start to finish days with energy left over because you've worked with your biology instead of against it. And this is the foundation of real-time mastery, turning rhythm into strategy rather than chasing efficiency through force. Now, the body and brain actually work in roughly 90-minute cycles called Ultradian rhythms. And these natural waves control your energy, your focus, and your alertness. And each cycle begins with a slow build of energy, peaks in concentration, and then gradually tapers off as your brain needs rest. And when you ignore this rhythm, you actually burn out faster and find yourself doing busy work instead of meaningful work. But when you build your schedule around it, you'll start finishing more in less time, and your focus will feel smoother, steadier, and more powerful. So start by studying your daily energy curve. Over a few days, just track when your mind feels sharpest and when it begins to slow down. And some people actually peak early in the morning. Others find their stride after lunch or in the evening, and try to just look for these windows where your focus feels natural and easy, and use them as your foundation for deep work. So for me, personally, I do my writing usually in the mornings, and I do recordings in the afternoons because of those cycles. And so start by using a notebook or simple tracking app to basically log your energy levels every couple of hours throughout the day. You can also use something like Notion or a Google Sheet, and just pay attention to both how you feel physically but also mentally. So don't overcomplicate it. Just jot down a few short, honest notes like focused, sluggish, foggy, or energized, and just make sure you note down the time as well. And over the next few days, you'll start basically noticing trends in your alertness, and within a week, clear patterns will basically appear that reveal your body's rhythm. And you'll begin understanding your internal clock, as well as you understand your calendar, and you'll see which parts of the day actually naturally push you forward and which ones slow you down. Now, to make your notes more meaningful, try to also add some small details about what you were doing when your energy changed. So were you eating? Did you just eat? Were you sitting still? Were you walking? Were you talking to someone? These context clues will actually help you discover which activities drain your focus and which ones refill it. And then at the end of the day, try to look back at your notes for 5 minutes. Highlight when your focus peaked and when it dipped. And this simple reflection will actually strengthen your awareness and make you more intentional about how you plan the next day. Now, after several days, you'll notice repeating patterns. Maybe you're sharp in the morning, like me, but lose energy around lunch, or maybe you hit your stride in the evening. And once you see this clearly, you'll understand that your focus isn't really random, but it's pretty predictable. And once you identify your highs and lows, you can draw them out visually and create a simple chart or graph of your energy levels over the day. And the peaks represent your prime focus windows, and the dips, on the other hand, are where you need more recovery. So the peaks will be perfect for deep, challenging work like writing, analysis, or creative problem solving. And the dips will be ideal for light tasks such as responding to emails, organizing files, or reviewing some notes. So try to label the graph with specific hours or time ranges at least, and just mark how your energy rises and falls throughout the day in as much detail as possible. And then divide the graph into clear segments, maybe morning, midday, and evening, and use lines or color to basically show how your focus moves. And seeing it laid out in front of you will actually turn an abstract pattern into something real you can work with every single day. And try to be specific when you're labeling. Instead of writing morning, note the exact times, like 7:30 to 9 a.m. And this level of detail will actually help you match tasks more accurately to your energy curve and make your plan feel grounded in reality rather than some guesswork. Now, once the graph starts to fill out, you can look for repeating shapes, the waves and dips that appear day after day, basically. And these consistent rhythms will become the foundation of how you organize your work. They'll also help you predict when to push forward and when to actually rest. And then take a few minutes to interpret what your graph is actually showing you. Ask yourself, when do I feel mentally sharp? When does my focus start to fade? When am I most creative? All of these questions will just help you connect what you see on the graph to what you experience each day. And then use your energy map to plan your day with intention. Place your hardest or most creative work, like writing, design, or problem solving, in your highest energy periods, and then schedule low energy blocks for small mechanical tasks such as emails, data entry, or organizing files. And so aligning tasks this way will actually make your workflow smoother and more sustainable across the week. And then try color coding or shading your time map to basically visualize energy zones. Highlight your peak hours in one color and then recovery zones in another. And this visual contrast will just help you see at a glance where deep work fits best. Now, the next step here is to mix high intensity work with recovery blocks to basically create a sustainable flow. For example, after a 90-minute session of deep concentration, try to follow it with a 15-minute recovery period of light activity or movement. And the balance between effort and ease will keep your mind fresh. Some days won't necessarily match your pattern perfectly. So for example, if you wake up tired or feel unexpectedly focused later in the day, try to move tasks around it, and then continue refining your map every few days as your body adapts. Sleep, diet, and stress all shift your rhythm, so treat the map as a living document rather than a fixed plan. Review how accurate it feels and note any changes that seem to help or hurt your focus. Every week, just spend a few minutes comparing your actual energy to your predicted energy, and you can ask yourself, did your peaks stay consistent? Did new ones appear? And just write down short notes about what might have caused any changes. And then keep improving the map with new information. The more data you gather, the more accurate your personal focus blueprint actually becomes. And over time, you'll trust it like a compass for your own attention. And I know it sounds hard, but this is the work a lot of people don't do. And now finally, apply what you learned by reshaping your daily schedule around your current rhythm. So each tweak you make will compound, turning this simple graph into one of the most powerful self-management tools you'll ever use. Now, after you've charted your energy, start using that knowledge to basically match your tasks with your natural flow. And you'll notice work begins to feel less like effort and more like momentum. And when your energy and priorities line up, You'll move through tasks with clarity. So during your peak focus windows, try to choose tasks that demand creativity or problem solving. And during your low periods, shift to maintenance work or reflection. This strategy together ensures that you never waste your best hours on busy work. And working this way will also reduce stress because you're not fighting against your natural rhythm. Your energy will basically carry you instead of resisting you. And over time, just this habit will build trust in your own system, and you'll know exactly when to push and when to rest. And as this becomes routine, you'll find that your days feel easier and more consistent, and productivity will no longer really depend on your willpower. It will just grow out of rhythm and awareness, and it will turn your schedule into something that works with you instead of against you. Now, with your rhythm clear, try to organize your day into focus blocks. Each block should last 60 to 90 minutes, long enough for deep work, but short enough to prevent burnout. And between blocks, you'll take short, intentional breaks that refresh your energy without losing your flow. So during each focus block, commit fully to only one task. Close all tabs, silence your notifications, and give your mind a single target. It will take around 10 minutes to actually warm up, 40 to 60 minutes to reach your peak, and then 10 to 15 minutes to taper off, and let the rhythm unfold naturally instead of trying to force intensity. Now, between blocks, take 5 to 10 minutes to truly step away. Stand up, move your body, hydrate, or breathe deeply. Just don't fill the break with new stimulation like scrolling or texting, because it actually doesn't allow for your mind to relax. And let your mind rest. You'll feel a mental reset almost immediately. And after 3 or 4 focus blocks, take a longer break of 30 to 60 minutes. And this is when you can eat, walk, or get sunlight. And without intentional recovery, your brain will actually start slipping into shallow focus, and you'll confuse fatigue with lack of motivation. And then try to keep your focus blocks and breaks consistent from day to day, because repetition will train your brain to enter focus faster and stay there longer. And eventually you'll notice that the start of each block will start feeling easier than the last, because the pattern itself cues concentration. Now, once your body and mind are in sync, you can begin to learn how to manage your time inside those cycles and shape each block with structure so it drives results. Now, time boxing is about giving structure to flow. When you define a clear start and stop for every task, you basically tell your brain exactly how much energy to spend. And this method will create urgency without stress and discipline without any burnout. So each morning, write down the main things you'll do that day and estimate how many focus blocks each will take. Now, this transforms vague goals into specific actions tied to time, and you'll no longer guess when to start or stop. You'll just know. And try to put your hardest and most meaningful tasks in the first block of the day. Your energy is highest then, and early wins will set the tone for the rest of the day. And when you start strong, motivation will actually become self-reinforcing. Then try to group similar tasks together. Handle emails, messages, and administrative work in the same block instead of scattering them through the day. And this will minimize task switching and conserve mental bandwidth. And then finally, remember that this method is a rhythm, not a rigid rule. So if a block runs short or long, just adjust it gently. The point is to stay in motion and return to rhythm, not to chase some kind of perfect timing. Now, once the block begins, go all in. Treat it like a short sprint rather than a marathon, while still knowing that rest is coming. So during a block, avoid multitasking entirely. Every switch, like checking your messages, browsing, or even glancing at notifications, will reset your brain's focus loop. Protect your attention like it's currency, because to a degree, it really is. And as you keep your focus blocks consistent, you'll feel the time pressure transform into drive. And each successful block will reinforce the habit, and your confidence in your ability to focus will start growing. And the more consistent you are, the easier it actually becomes to enter that flow state. Now, when your timer ends, stop even if you're mid-sentence. And this is very important. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but it trains your brain to view focus as a repeatable process rather than some kind of a draining event that you're forcing yourself through. And when you return, you'll pick up exactly where you left off, and most likely you'll be sharper and faster, and you'll enter work easier and flow easier because you've left it at a point where you can just continue rather than having to start all over again. Because if you just finish your work in that block and you actually don't leave it where it is as something to continue, and you just finish it there, it will later on, when you try to enter into a more focused state once again, or in another focus session, it will feel like you're starting again. And that's what's going to trip you up, because actually it will be way better if you can just continue from where you were rather than to feel like you're starting again. And so it will be easier to actually go into flow. So after each day, try to take a few minutes to look back at your blocks and see which ones flowed easily, which ones dragged. And this reflection in general will just help you adjust your timing and improve your rhythm. And you'll gradually build a schedule that feels effortless. Now, once you've mastered time boxing and Ultradian cycles, your workday becomes predictable yet flexible, and it will be steady like a heartbeat. And from here, you'll be ready to scale that rhythm into your week. Let's talk about execution rhythms and the perfect week. So focus at the daily level will only take you so far without rhythm at the weekly level to basically support it. The perfect week isn't about stuffing your calendar, but rather about building a structure that lets your energy compound in a way that feels steady and sustainable over time. And as your days begin to link together with intention, your focus will stop resetting each morning and instead start building like momentum that rolls forward from the day before. So in 2003, performance psychologists Jim Loehr and Tony Schwartz published The Power of Full Engagement, introducing a model that basically redefined productivity. Based on research at their Human Performance Institute they founded in the early 1990s, they showed that top athletes and executives succeeded not by working longer, but by balancing effort and recovery. Now, Loehr's background in sports psychology and Schwartz's work in executive coaching shaped a system that basically linked performance to rhythm, not endurance. So the research revealed that energy, not time, is the real currency of high performance. Like a muscle, energy actually strengthens through challenge, but breaks down without rest. And by managing the 4 dimensions, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, they found people could sustain focus and resilience without actually burning out. Their central idea was clear: manage your energy, not just your time. So every week follows a natural rhythm made of peaks and valleys, and understanding this rhythm will actually change how you manage your energy. There are days when your clarity feels razor sharp, when your motivation flows easily, and when you're creating or solving problems feels effortless. Then there are days where your mind slows down, focus drifts, and fatigue creeps in quietly. These patterns aren't really random. They're your body and brain working together in cycles that you can learn to harness instead of fight. Now, once you begin to see these highs and lows as part of your natural system, you'll basically notice your mindset shift. You'll start using high energy days for creative or strategic work and saving your lower energy moments for reflection, organization, or rest. And this balance will make each part of the week serve a purpose, and you'll feel less resistance to your natural flow. So instead of trying to force constant output, learn to ride the wave. When energy rises, dive into deep focus and stretch it as far as it goes. And when it dips, try to recover deliberately with lighter work or rest. This rhythm of alternating effort and recovery will basically make your focus sustainable, and then your performance more stable over time. And you'll see that each day actually carries its own tone and weight. Monday might feel sharp and fast, while Wednesday leans towards fatigue, and Friday holds a sense of calm resolution. When you recognize that each phase serves a role, you'll stop expecting constant peak performance and start designing balance instead. So to make this work practically, structure your workload so that momentum builds rather than collapses. Early week progress will basically create confidence that sustains you through the midweek challenges, and recovery towards the end will replenish strength for the next cycle. Now, this sequence basically ensures that no energy is wasted and every effort reinforces the next. Now, working in alignment with this natural cadence won't just improve your productivity, it will also protect your focus from burnout. Your system will adapt to the rhythm you design, and it will allow consistency to grow naturally instead of through forced effort. Now, once you begin to view your week through this lens, it also transforms from a random series of days into a framework that you can actually maintain. So focus stops being something you chase and becomes something you protect. And each week will build on the last, and it will turn repetition into momentum. As this rhythm solidifies, you'll find your weeks feel smoother and more predictable, and you'll meet challenges with readiness, recover faster from fatigue, and you'll also sustain sharper focus for longer. That steady, repeatable balance is what creates mastery, the kind that basically feels effortless because it's aligned with your nature. Now, a productive week follows structure, balance, and deliberate pacing. It's a measured sequence of effort and recovery designed to preserve energy while maintaining progress. And each period of focus has a defined beginning, an intensity peak, and a clean conclusion. So each rest interval has a purpose, acting as a reset rather than a distraction. And when you begin managing your week through cadence, you stop rushing through days and start sustaining high performance. And you'll notice how focus will actually last longer and energy will spread evenly, and your results will begin compounding quietly. So to apply cadence effectively, divide your week into 3 distinct types of days: deep, dynamic, and recovery. Each serves a clear purpose, and together they basically create balance. Deep days are for full immersion and high focus work. Dynamic days are for interaction, collaboration, and creativity. Recovery days are for recharging the mind and body. Start by selecting 2 or 3 days for uninterrupted, high intensity focus. Now, these are going to be your anchor points, the foundation on which progress is basically built. So keep your calendar clear, eliminate any distractions, and dedicate the first 3 hours of the day to your hardest work. And as you do, you'll notice that finishing these demanding tasks early will create the freedom and clarity for the rest of the week. Now, the evening before, try to outline your objectives in detail so that there's no hesitation in the morning. Have all of your materials ready, your tabs closed, and distractions removed. and this will help your mind actually enter flow state faster. And then keep your body aligned with your cognitive effort. Eat clean, stay hydrated, and move lightly before work. Treat your deep days like training sessions for your brain. Warm up, execute, and recover. And then track your results during each deep session. Now, after deep work, switch gears into collaboration and creation. These are going to be your interaction days, rich in movement and exchange. And they provide the stimulation needed to spark new ideas and break monotony. So try to batch calls, meetings, and brainstorming sessions in clustered blocks to reduce constant context switching. Then use the energy from human interaction to actually refine your ideas or develop some strategies. And then close dynamic days with some kind of a short recap. Note your discoveries, your conversations, or ideas that are worth pursuing, and this will ensure nothing actually that's valuable slips through the cracks. And then finally, preserve at least one day for complete reset. This isn't optional. Without recovery, the entire rhythm will actually collapse. So rest means disconnecting fully from your work cycles. Step away from screens, get sunlight, or engage in slow restorative activity. Now, your brain consolidates information during these rest periods. So use the downtime to repair your body as well. Stretch, eat well, and just try to sleep for a bit longer. And then try to spend quiet time reviewing your week's results. Identify what energized you and what actually depleted you. Now, the way your week unfolds determines how your energy carries through it. A strong sequence builds continuity, each day leading logically to the next. So start each week with clarity, move through collaboration, and then close with reflection. So begin your week with deliberate intensity and structure. Treat Monday and Tuesday, possibly Wednesday, as the pillars of your performance. They define your rhythm and sets up the psychological tone for everything that follows. And then start fast, stay focused, and let the first 2 days act as a launchpad for progress. Now, what's important is to protect these early mornings like appointments with your future. They are your highest mental peaks before distractions start multiplying. So keep them reserved for deep, meaningful work. And then make your environment frictionless. Close non-essential tabs, silence your devices, and tidy your workspace, and then support your focus through the body. Hydrate, stretch lightly, and eat to stabilize energy rather than spike it. So repeat this early week format weekly. With repetition, your brain begins to expect focus rather than resist it, and it will make Mondays and Tuesdays automatic engines for execution. So try to spend Sunday evening planning your week, review your goals, outline deep work blocks, and anticipate possible friction points. And then try to track what you accomplish early in the week. Quick progress on essential tasks early in the week will build emotional inertia that carries you through the midweek. And then finally, on Tuesday evening, try to reflect briefly on what went well. Now, as the week unfolds, transition smoothly into collaborative effort. Wednesday and Thursday act as adaptive pivots and balance structure and interaction. Energy will dip naturally, but if you coordinate properly, you'll be able to preserve your momentum. So use the midweek to manage logistics and communication that support earlier deep work. Batch meetings, group brainstorms, and planned calls together to basically protect your attention. So keep meetings within defined time ranges like late morning or early afternoon, periods when social energy is naturally higher. And then set strict timeframes and clear objectives for each meeting. And then finally, immediately document the meeting outcomes. Quick written notes will prevent any loss of clarity and open loops. And then maintain moderate effort through rhythm. Work in 45-minute sprints, followed by short resets to basically conserve your energy. And on Thursday evening, try to reflect on your progress and recalibrate. Decide what will be completed Friday and optionally Saturday and Sunday, and what can roll forward into the next week. And between tasks, move briefly, hydrate, and breathe deeply. And when communicating with others, try your best to engage intentionally. Ask yourself whether each interaction moves your week's goals forward or not. Having awareness around this will filter out any signal from noise, and then feed any insights back into your core projects. Turn those discussions into decisions and ideas into concrete action steps so that nothing stays on your mind like a vague open loop. And then finally, end your week by transforming your actions during the week into lessons. Friday or Saturday can be your cool down period, a time to basically review, synthesize, and then set the stage for renewal. So take 15 minutes to evaluate the outcomes you had this week and ask yourself what worked well, what slowed you down, and what needs adjusting. And then write down your wins, your lessons, and your improvements, and any challenges you had during the week. And that way you'll turn your activity into tangible lessons that you can use. And it will transform your effort into basically unstoppable progress over time, because those lessons will start compounding. And you're essentially creating your own feedback loop of improvement every single week. Now, something that helps me transition into real life is to basically create a deliberate sense of finality. I organize my desk, finish any loose ends, set up reminders, and then note down what must be done next week. And so I mark the end of my week with a simple ritual, usually a short journaling session, and the ritual acts as a mental switch that basically tells my system to rest after it's done. And then I try to fully disconnect through the weekend, especially from social media, and especially on Sundays, because my mind recovers in that stillness. And because of that, new insights, lessons, or ideas will often surface spontaneously during that time because I'm not chasing them, and I make sure to basically write them down, either as a reminder on Notion or in my notebook. Now, once your week flows in sequence and rhythm, just pause to recognize what you've actually built. Each week now operates as a self-sustaining feedback loop. It's structured, balanced, and reflective. And you've basically built a system that preserves focus, channels effort, and builds consistency that feels natural. Now, all you have to do is really keep refining, stay patient, and then let the rhythm compound. And over time, your productivity will increase quietly, shaped by repetition. And it will no longer feel forced, but simply lived. So with that being said, let's go over the review. We talked about the foundations of hyperfocus, clarity targeting, environment lockdown, time boxing and Ultradian cycles, execution rhythms and the perfect week, the review, and finally your action items for the day or the next few days. First, build your week before it begins. Choose at least 2 deep days, at least 2 dynamic days, and at least 1 full recovery day, and then block them into your calendar. Then guard your focus windows as if they were meetings with your future self. Silence any notifications, clear your desk, and communicate your boundaries to others. And then finally, end every week by reviewing what worked, what didn't, and what can actually improve. And write down your insights before disconnecting for rest. This will transform your routine into a system of continuous refinement and improvement, and a machine for improvement that basically compounds over time. With that said, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like, subscribe to the channel for more, comment below to let me know what you would like to see next. And if you're an entrepreneur, creator, or a professional and you want to work with me personally one-on-one, then make sure to book a call from the second link in the description. And if you want this document along with this training, make sure to join the free community from the first link in the description. With that being said, thank you for being here, and I'm going to see you in the next one.